Okay, at this time, we have concluded public comment. I want to thank everyone who did comment today, for or against what is being discussed here, or further ideas. We will now turn it over to comments by the board. Director Garcetti.
Well, thank you to the members of the public. Thank you for your patience. Thank you to the board members for your attention. I haven't lived in this project for 65 years, but I've been on this board for just under 4. And let me start first by thanking you, Mr. Chair, to recognize for a minute the long years of work that you have put into this project. And in my time on this board, I've been very happy to work with Director Najarian, Supervisor Solis, Supervisor Barger on this, as well as some of their predecessors as well. And I want to thank the community members who have, there's no win-win solution here. People are going to be disappointed. The only lose-lose solution we've been having is doing nothing. And everybody's a little disappointed because maybe they're a little happy, but they're mostly a little bit disappointed because for years nothing has happened. And I just want to personally talk about this for a moment. My grandfather was an immigrant from Mexico, grew up in Boyle Heights, and he lived where the 101 freeway is now. His mother's home was taken away forcibly, and he had to move. My father grew up around 41st and Figueroa Place, which doesn't exist anymore because the Harbor Freeway came and took his home away growing up in South Los Angeles. And my wife and I and our family most recently lived in Northeast Los Angeles in Silver Lake and Echo Park, where we saw the rump of the 2 freeway, which was supposed to be the Beverly Hills Freeway, if you know that. Which on one hand, as a commuter, I was like, this is a convenient place to everywhere but the west side. So I kind of understand the issues for everybody. Like, wow, wouldn't it have been great if that freeway had been finished? And wow, isn't it devastating when we build freeways what the impact is? I can actually sympathize with what folks have said on all sides of this. And all of us deeply care about, I think, this particular project and how it impacts the communities that we represent. Since my time as a council member, I've been opposed to a tunnel. I was listening to my constituents. There were studies that were going to be as far as west as Echo Park for an alternative tunnel, listening to folks in El Sereno and joining together with then Councilmember Reyes, Councilmember Huizar, and myself. We authored the motion to oppose that in 2012 as MTA and Caltrans were working on the EIR. The concerns that I had at that time are still there for me. I can't wrap my head around that, and as mayor of Los Angeles, I can't do any more than thank my constituents in El Sereno who are here today for their work and their activism and standing up for their neighbors and their neighborhood. But I don't have to remind you that Measure M also passed with 70+% of the vote. It's not a coincidence, I think, that Measure M only contains one new freeway project, which is far from the regional core up in the North County. I think as a county and as a region, we've moved on from new freeways. We have improvements to curves, we have kind of flow issues, on-ramps, off-ramps, but that's not something that we're investing in anymore. The power of what was said, kind of 20th century solutions. Actually, there are a lot of great 20th century solutions we are using in the 21st century, like rail, again, but not all 20th century solutions are the right ones for today. And I think in this most recent vote, the voters of Los Angeles County said that they don't see new freeways as a solution to their mobility needs. And I understand the argument that was made about Measure R wasn't around as a board member. I certainly supported it. But there was a mechanism in R, and there is a mechanism eyes wide open in M, to make democratic choices with democratically elected representatives when changes occur. One thing that we did mandate in R and in M is that it stay in the region. Now, leading up to this, we knew 40% of that activity was actually in the city of LA. The rest then crosses right over the border into San Gabriel Valley COG, the area that was then put into the formal documents of Measure R. So in order to take that money, which I know the letter, for instance, of the El Sereno Coalition had, is to take the money from that, violates that law. But what this motion does, and I want to thank Councilmember Huizar's staff, the El Sereno residents, everybody for their support of what Supervisor Solis and I worked on. It was going to be a separate amendment. I want to thank the makers of the motion to just incorporate this into their original one, was to look at what other funding sources there are so that East LA, El Sereno, and the other areas that were impacted and are impacted today get at least as much money as they would have out of the R pot. You don't need to worry which pot it's in. You just need to worry that things are going to get done. And so we've been able to achieve that in a way that meets the letter of the law and maybe even has a few more dollars than if we had done it through Measure R, which is good news for those folks who are right in the crosshairs that my grandfather in Boyle Heights was with his family for so many years. So that is what we put in to this motion to make sure that the work can be done. Let me say one other thing. As a member of this board, I always strive to take a regional approach to as often as possible. My first responsibility is to my own voters, but I really try to make sure that we take a regional approach, one that doesn't pit one sub-region against another. And I think that as we look at this, we do have regional needs, and some of those are articulated. Some of them are almost microclimates. What Alhambra has as a microclimate is as important as El Sereno. El Sereno for environmental justice absolutely doesn't want it, and Alhambra for environmental justice absolutely does want it. So there's no kind of reconciling that. We sometimes just have to vote for the areas that we represent. But I think it is very important for us to take this opportunity as we move forward in some of the good suggestions there seems to be consensus on, that we really say, look, the money is not going to be there for this tunnel. So eyes wide open, what's bigger than incremental things? What can we do so that folks who are choked on pollution, who do suffer from asthma and cancer, have real options? And we know this is an organism that interacts throughout the entire region. It's the butterfly effect. Folks in Long Beach and folks in Pomona and folks in the San Fernando Valley and the West Side are actually affected by what we do and don't build. Until we start looking at all of those communities together and do things like what we'll be talking about later, moving towards electrification of buses and looking towards the ways that we can have EVs on our streets and take that pollution off our streets, we'll be fighting these tactical battles instead of having a wider strategy. That wasn't in Measure M, and Measure M can contribute to that, but I hope that Metro will think of itself as really that agency, not just the air quality agency, but that agency for environmental justice for all of us and for a better quality of life. But I urge support of this motion today. Thank you.
Well, thank you. I just want to say that based on your family history, if you live in Hancock Park, you have to be very concerned. Director Najarian.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'd like to thank everyone who came today to speak, and those even who didn't speak but are showing their support. I think this is going to be a historic day, a day that will go down in the record books, because there will be a decision made on the 710 tunnel, and we have spent so many years and hours and incredible amounts of money dealing with this issue, whether it was 55 years or 60 years, ready for Social Security payments or whatever that is. And I think that was the problem with this issue. It was such a polarizing issue, still is a polarizing issue, that we were paralyzed in terms of making a decision. But I do applaud staff for doing all the hard work. I was at many of your meetings. Those weren't easy meetings. You were getting tomatoes thrown at you, and there were statues put in your honor, and the next minute they were getting burned down. It was very difficult, and I do applaud staff for doing your duty, acting as professionals in all times. I know it wasn't easy, but I do want to give kudos to staff. I would like to applaud the elected officials who have been fighting this and involved, let's not say fighting, involved in finding a resolution to this for so many years, from the cities of Los Angeles, the unincorporated. And by the way, the gentleman who said East LA is not represented is totally wrong. You have got a fine supervisor here who has nothing but the best interest of the community, as well as the staff, Supervisor Solis, that has done an excellent job on this and many other issues. And also to my colleagues on the board. I mean, I had some dark years on this board. I almost went into therapy because there were times when I would bring up this tunnel and I would be vilified and demonized and ridiculed. Thank you for all those who gave me
Guilty as charged.
support. Not you, John. You were very professional, and you maintained. I agree with John Walsh that you have maintained a very demeanor throughout this whole project. I want to give a call out to Congressman Adam Schiff, who could not be here today. He's a great leader both locally and nationally. And although he doesn't have any specific comments, I do want to point out that he was very much supportive of alternatives to the tunnel. I think what we're doing here is making hoping that we will be making the environmentally correct decision, the fiscally responsible decision. I do have to disagree with some of the findings that puts the tunnel as the best alternative. We have severe and strong comments from the EPA and AQMD discussing the intense risk of cancer at the ventilation stacks. There's going to be possibly a toll feature which was not discussed. This will be a job creator to all those in labor. This money doesn't get shipped off to China. It doesn't go up in smoke. This is going to be used in projects throughout this entire corridor, including the region, communities of El Sereno, East LA. These are going to be transportation projects that are going to be developed and implemented, and they're going to provide as many, if not more, jobs than a tunnel would do. Don't forget, if a tunnel company came in, they're going to have their own special crew, and they're not going to be hiring all the jobs locally. The other types of projects are more suitable to local hiring, and the Metro Board itself would actually have a greater role in doing that. I think it's important that no one gloat about this. The pro tunnel folks have invested their heart and soul in this. The no tunnel folks, looks like things are going your way a little bit. But the important thing is that there's money being offered to the communities, significant money to do your own projects and to work together. If you collaborate, that money goes even farther, as you know. El Sereno, East LA, all the way up to La Cañada, you're all in this. This is truly a transportation step forward, and I urge my colleagues to please support this motion that has been collaborated on by so many fine leaders of the county: Fasana, Barger, Solis, Garcetti. My name's at the end of it. That's okay. I took my own horn. But please, let's work on this together, and let's give our communities a way forward to solve the transportation issues that they have today. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Director Solis?
Thank you. I also want to congratulate our Chairman Fasana for his outstanding work and dedication. It really takes a strong-willed individual who has a good command of budgets and policy going back many years. And I know he and I share issues regarding the San Gabriel Valley for many, many years past. And remember, quite frankly, that when Measure R was before us, at that time I was in the Congress and really didn't have a vote, but was very concerned because areas of the San Gabriel Valley were neglected. And now, and in part, East Los Angeles and El Sereno. So I'm happy that at least we have begun this conversation in a civil way. There are winners and there are losers, but in my opinion, this is one of the best maps moving forward that will provide justice to communities that have been held hostage because of environmental racism. And I'm very pleased that East LA is included, and in particular the areas of the Northeast and El Sereno. But I want to thank the community, because really, again, it's the work of the community that helps to mobilize and frame where the directors go and how we proceed forward. And I ask you to continue to be vigilant. And earlier today, we had a group of students from East LA. They expressed to me their interest and concern in wanting to be engaged in policy making. And I asked them to stay engaged and help work with us, because as we move out this new mobility plan, I can already see where some of those youngsters are going to be leading us in the path for the next 10 and 20 years, and how we change how we look at transportation, how we deal with carbon monoxide, how we deal with climate change, how we're dealing with electrification of buses, and the new technology that will promise them jobs of the future. That's what's important here too. How we steer the funding that we are entrusted with, where it goes, and that there is justice. So this day will be remembered by, I think, by many. I want to thank the staff of Metro for coming up with more support and ideas and helping us frame this. And I want to thank, obviously, my seatmate, Mr. Najarian, because he has he has been that person constantly bringing up this issue. Mayor Garcetti and also Catherine Barger for standing up and being a strong leader on this issue right away. She hasn't even been here 6 months, and she's doing a great job. I want to commend her, and also to our chairman, Fasana. Thank you, and on behalf of my community, thank you for coming out. Muchísimas gracias.
Well, actually, I'm going to make this, sometimes less is better, but as someone who is representing both sides on this issue, I have to say this has been a very, very difficult process. And Chairman Fasana, I want to thank you for being a leader, because I know this has been a difficult process for you. And at the end of the day, we have to do what's right for our communities. And I say to Barbara Messina, who has been probably one of the strongest supporters and advocates, that the respect I have for you and the fact that you have maintained your position through thick and thin does not go unnoticed. At the end of the day, as a representative, we have to do what's right for our communities. And living in the community, I recognize that, and I've said this when I was running, that we have issues right now that need to be addressed, and the tunnel, whether it be built or not, is not going to fix what's happening right now in our communities. And living in a community that definitely has been hard hit by the traffic, we need to do something now. And this motion will allow us to move forward with some sort of mitigation. The challenge is going to be, what is that going to look like? And so by no means is it over as it relates to how we roll out the funding and address this. But I have to thank my colleagues on this board who allowed those that represent areas impacted to lead on this and work with us to accomplish something that Mayor Garcetti, you said it's not a win-win, but it will begin the process of hopefully healing and also addressing the traffic and the impact that this has had for the course since I've lived in the area, and I'm 56, so it's been going on long before that. So I want to thank you again, Chairman Fasana, for your leadership, and Mary Lou, I know you put a lot of time into this, and I appreciate the work that you've done, as well as the work that my staff, Dave Perry, put into this. So thank you.
Thank you. Director Butts.
I just wanted to make a brief observation. Since I've been on the board, this tunnel has been talked about a lot, and with great apprehension, because I think everybody knew that there wasn't going to be the money for it. And when it was on, the motion was on the agenda today, and I came in and I saw all the people, I said, oh, this isn't going to end well. But I would tell you that this is one of the most impressive examples of reasoned democracy for a subject that has such a long-term impact on people's lives. I've never experienced anything like this. Everyone represented their position, but no one was angry, even Mr. Walsh. Everyone was reasoned, and everyone had their say. And from that, I want to go to talk about the leadership of the makers of the motion. I'm going to mention Director Najarian first because he was last. But Director Najarian, Directors Barger, Solis, Garcetti, and of course our leader, Director Fasana, showed a great deal of courage in bringing up a topic that needed resolution. There are times when a decision has to be made to move forward and do what's best for everyone, even though everyone won't get exactly what they want. And I really want to compliment Director Solis. She sits next to me, and so I've gotten to know her very well over the last couple of years. And she's one of the most intelligent, reasoned, courageous people that you could have for a representative. And so I think that this is just a fantastic outcome. And so particularly for all of you on this motion, Mayor Garcetti, I want to congratulate you.
Thank you. Director Hahn.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I certainly have only been on this board for a couple of months, but this issue has certainly resonated and tortured a lot of folks for a lot of years. I voted last week during committee to receive and file, and that had a lot to do with the conversations I had with the 710 Coalition and sort of really hearing their long struggle and fight, tears, passion. And I think you're right, Director Butts. I mean, what we've seen today is pretty amazing. And the fact that the communities were so organized and came down here, everyone had their say. I don't think the issues probably changed for anybody. But I will say, I do have a lot of respect, particularly for Barbara Messina and the 710 Coalition, and they're going to be disappointed today. I plan to support this motion today, and I think Director Fasana, your leadership, particularly since you have supported the tunnel for so many years, and the fact that you realized at some point the money needed to be redirected. I feel the pain, though, of those cities. You know, I represent the other end of the 710 freeway. And I will tell you, my communities in Wilmington and San Pedro and North Long Beach, you know, have suffered tremendously because of cargo-related pollution. You know, we have 350,000 days of lost school because of cargo-related pollution. So while our ports of Long Beach and Los Angeles are ports that we're very proud of, 44% of all the trade that comes through this country comes through our ports. They're the biggest economic engine in our region and the source of good paying jobs. But they're also the #1 polluter in the region. And I remember, and Mayor Garcetti, you were on the council with me in early 2002, 2003, when I championed moving cargo off-peak. And as you remember, that was unheard of. But we are moving cargo off-peak, but not to the extent we should. More of that cargo should be moving when the rest of the commuters are off the freeway. And Mayor Garcia, I challenge you to join with me and urge our ports to open their gates. All the gates are not open all the time. They should be in relieving that 710 of cargo when the rest of the world is trying to get to work. And we need more on-dock rail. That's what we should all be supporting. And I challenge SCAG to do more on-dock rail. We need that cargo off the ships, onto rail, and to their final destination. And we should build that. We should build short rail hauls. All that, 50% of that cargo is trucked, and that's what we're talking about at the end of the 710 corridor. It's that cargo. So, while we're going to support this today, I think we should rededicate ourselves to figuring out how that cargo should not be a source of pollution and congestion and asthma and cancer. No, our region should not bear the burden, health risks wise, for someone in Kansas to get their flat screen TV sooner. That's not a fair burden for our region, and I think we can do more, and I hope I can count on all of you to work with me so that we someday have electric vehicles moving that cargo, and it's a zero emissions port. That's what we should aim for. I know Long Beach has that as a goal. Let's all recommit ourselves to that and lessen the impact that freight has on every single city in this region. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Kuehl.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I was in the legislature in Sacramento, we voted in a slightly different way than the way we do here. We each had 2 buttons on our desk, and one of them for no, it lit up as a red button, and the one for yes lit up as a green button. And one of my colleagues on the other side of the aisle and I used to train people, on the very basics of speaking and pressing buttons and whatever when they were new. And when a red button for no and a green button for yes. You don't get a beats the hell out of me button. And we've kind of been stuck in a beats the hell out of me button on this issue for a really long time. And it is understandable because many of us say, well, you know, that's certainly a good argument. That's a good argument too. And I think the good thing about today, among others, is the resolution of this issue for people on one side or another. I mean, as was indicated, there will be disappointment and there will be, you know, joy in Mudville. And that's kind of the way it is when we decide. But I want to praise the chair for really sort of taking leadership in resolving the issue. Difficult as it has been, really, to bring everybody together, you know, to herd cats, as they say, or wrangle all these people. Also, I think the larger vision for LA County that this board represents, we are trying to move toward cleaner transit and transportation, and also sort of less congestion, more people making decisions to essentially ride together in public transit. And I think we're looking at some of the same answers for delivery in order to cut the traffic. I think the job for this board is going to be overseeing these projects, making certain that they keep the vision of attempting to wrangle this traffic in a way that best serves the residents. It's kind of like homelessness in a way. Everybody wants us to solve homelessness. And last year in LA County, we housed 14,000 people. 14,000 people. So we ended homelessness for those 14,000 people. Unfortunately, at the same time, another 20,000 fell into homelessness because of eviction, because of the high rents, because of a number of reasons. And it's kind of the same with traffic, where we're not controlling, essentially, how many cars are going at any one time. But I think this is a really good start. And the measures that we adopt, I think, are the next important thing, because as they always say, the devil's in the details. So thanks to those of you who brought the motion. I'm in support.
Thank you. Director DePaul Walker.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I try to remain silent, but both the ancestors that were mentioned by one speaker as well as future generations compel me to add my voice to my fellow colleagues on the board about this day. During the committee, I was unable to support the motion that came forward because I didn't understand everything that was in it. Thank you, Chair Fasano, for your leadership and working with the other members of the board to clarify and ensure that all segments of this county are represented. In fact, in the list of motion makers, we see every appointing authority represented. The staff that's worked on this is to be commended for the years of working with this, and the board staff is to be commended for working out the details. And I have no doubt that we don't need to urge continued engagement, because it has been continued engagement. But as a board member, I commit to stay woke and to make sure that we come upon a solution that benefits the communities and the people in a way that is deserving. It is my pleasure to strongly support this motion and to commend the makers of the motion.
Thank you, Director DePaul Walker. I know Mayor Garcetti and I were discussing that when Social Security came up, we thought about the Social Security Administration to make up the funding gap, but that having been said, you know, I will speak as someone who long has supported the tunnel. I think there was a very minute number of us up here toward the end that had that position. But I've also recognized that we have not been able to implement immediate relief as this continued on, and probably would have continued on and on. I understood the receive and file report, which is part of this as well. To me, it made sense what came out of the report. But at the same time, a theory on paper doesn't accomplish any relief to the affected communities. And I also recognize that, as Director Garcetti said, and with his vote today, within the basin south of the San Gabriels and the Santa Monica Mountains, the highway system we have today is what we will have 100 years from now. We might add a lane here, make some ramp improvements there, and we will also add a lot more people, because even with climate change, our weather here is still great, and the economy is still great. So it is one of the challenges we will have as we add many residents, many businesses. We have to live with the same highway system we have. That same highway system that will carry our buses and keeping those buses moving. If you end up with a 25% delay on buses and traffic, that's 25% less efficiency in our system. So we have a lot of challenges we need to make and meet. But I think the motion that we've come up with, working with other members of the board and certainly listening to members in the communities, I know there are many people I represent that do not support this motion. It gets improvements out there now. Recognizing, again, as an advocate for the tunnel, I can't deny that you're probably looking at congestion on either end of the freeway, which might just spill immediately on the tunnel as well. I thought the tunnel is the best approach. I've also come to the realization it is not fundable. If it happened, it would be many, many years away. And these other improvements, by spreading out some of the improvements within the corridor, improving some of the on-ramps and off-ramps, fixing the stubs on the north and the south ends, maybe these can bring about some of the improvements that have been discussed. I really hope that they do improve the situation and counteract some of the increasing traffic, as Director Kuehl noted, that is always out there, even as we make improvements to our system. So I think we have reached a point where a decision needs to be made. I too want to thank members of the public for their contributions to this and their long passions and contributions on this project over the years. I think this is a chance where still we need parties to find a way to work together. Some of these improvements will affect adjoining jurisdictions, and I hope we can do better on some of these other projects than we can do with the tunnel of the past. With that, we have 29 before us, which is a receive and file, and 29.1, which is the amendment. I do note that it does preserve the San Gabriel Valley Major R funding while bringing other resources that have been dedicated to the tunnel to El Sereno, City of Los Angeles, and East LA. So it does bring improvements to all affected areas. And with that, I don't see the need to divide these items, which will receive the staff report and move forward with 29.1. So I will ask for a roll call vote on the combined motion and receiving file.
Was there a second to your motion?
I think we have a lot of seconds here. And Director Barber is listed as a second, and Director Hunt, or Director Butts. So let's have a roll call.
We have only 6.
We have for 29.1 or 29? I think that's really because we had a lot of participation on this item.
He's humming.
Director Hahn. Aye. Director Ford.
Aye.
Director DuPont Walker. Yes. Director Bonin.
Aye.
Director Parker. Aye. Director Garcetti.
Aye.
Director Kuehl. Aye. Director Klein. And Watts.
Aye.
Director Solis.
Aye.
Yes.
Director Garcia.
Aye.
Chair Fasano.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you very much. Let's continue forward. If you wish to celebrate, you can do so outside the doors. Thank you.
Hurry up,
Let's move next to item, we have some items pulled off consent. Let's come back and pick those up. If you're going to be leaving, please attempt to do so quietly. Thank you.
Hey, how are you? Good. You happy?
If you're going to continue discussions, hearings can
Christine.